Family. Ciao ragazzi, ben arrivati. Sono contentissimo, finalmente ho un po' un ritaglio di tempo per vedere Costa Concordia, non vedevo l'ora. Era dall'altra sera, ormai più di un mese fa, quando abbiamo visto Man in a Cave, che volevo vedere anche questo. Quindi finalmente riusciamo a farlo, sono contento. Allora. Video della Costa Concordia. Io proverò un esperimento e poi mi direte voi se ne vale la pena o no. Sottotitoli generati automaticamente con una traduzione italiana, per farlo capire a più gente possibile. Ci proviamo, ovviamente non sono dei sottotitoli precisi, servono a darvi un'idea se quello che state ascoltando non vi torna. Quindi chiaramente questa è Civitavecchia, invece leggete Civitavecchia. Ho lasciato esattamente questo secondo come esempio perfetto di quello che sta succedendo. Secondo me sminchiare un po' i tempi verbali, eccetera, eccetera, ha senso, però meglio di navigare a vista se non sapete la lingua. Giusto? Quindi proviamo. Ma è lo stesso traduttore di SA3? No, non credo. Sì, beh, non è... Dipende, maiali, Dipende. Alcuni pezzi magari è inglese base, altri magari non lo è. Non l'ho visto il video, non lo posso sapere. Ho rivisto il VOD di ieri, fa sempre piacere vedere Operazione Totodillo, Iero. Sei un bel ragazzo, sei un bel giovanotto, spero che mi scriva qualche fica per girarti il suo contatto, così sistemiamo tutti. Sei tra gli gnocchi, esatto, Acelina. Detto questo, il video dura quasi un'ora, quindi sto zitto e andiamo avanti.
The Costa Concordia, ship of dreams.
Ship of
It's
dreams.
been 8 years.
Alzo un pochino.
I can still smell the buffets from their 5 restaurants. The casino and
sto zitto, nel
3-story
senso che...
theater had hardly been used. Ah, the gym, the day spa.
Serve a poco, tanto non
the
rimorchio.
sheets in
Iero, sei un
1500
weeb e sei anche
luxurious
stupido.
cabins.
È una combinazione tosta per rimorchiare.
Costa Concordia cost $570 million.
570 milioni di dollari? Ben spesi. Questa è un remix del Titanic. Ok.
I remember it like it was just a few years ago. We had left Civitavecchia, a port in
Civitavecchia.
Rome, and we were making our way to Savona. It was day 2 of our 7-day journey.
Sì, proprio.
But that ship, she was cursed.
Cursed.
When she premiered, the traditional bottle of champagne bounced right off the side instead of smashing.
Not bad,
Perfetto.
only. But I'm not the superstitious type. Nothing could go wrong on
Siamo partiti
Friday
bene.
the 13th of January 2012.
Siamo partiti
on the
bene.
100th year anniversary of the Titanic, on a ship that's also only safety rated for 2-compartment flooding, especially not when you have a 5-star max level captain like Francisco Scatino, a man who mysteriously rose from head of security to the position of captain within just a couple of years.
He knows exactly what to do in case of an emergency.
Oh,
For
mamma
example,
mia.
when he caused this emergency in
Croin, grazie
2008,
dei
when
28.
he crashed into a port in Sicily. And in 2010, in Warnemünde, Germany, when he was steering a different ship and came into port too fast and caused another collision. I've got a good feeling about this. So let's set the scene.
Ah, ma
It's a beautiful
aveva già
evening.
fatto danno?
People are having
Aspetta.
fun on the slide.
Scusate,
Drinks at the bar.
Scusate,
What to do
scusate,
the
aveva già
13th
fatto danno?
of January 2012, on the 100th year anniversary of the Titanic, on a ship that's also only safety rated for 2-compartment flooding, especially not when you have a 5-star max level captain like Francisco
No, questa parte mi
Scatino,
mancava, Wolfer.
a man who mysteriously rose from head of security to the position of captain within just a couple of years.
He knows exactly what to do in case of an emergency.
For example, when he caused this emergency in 2008, when he crashed
Ma
into a port in Sicily.
lol.
And in 2010, in Warnemünde, Germany, when he was steering a different ship and came into port too fast and caused another collision.
Ma scusate, ma uno come fa a avere ancora...
I've got a good feeling about
Boh.
So let's set the scene.
Boh,
It's a beautiful evening.
prepariamo la scena.
People are having fun on the slides. Drinks at the bar. Antonio Magnotta is playing piano at the restaurant.
Antonio Magnotta.
Martin the magician is setting up for his show. And the ship is setting up for a little detour. It's called a sail-by salute. Basically, you get real close to the shore and honk the horn. The locals hate it, but the customers love it, and it's a tradition. Scatino, the captain, comes into the dining hall with the lady, Dominica Samorton. Remember this face, because you'll be seeing a lot of it later. Scatino eats his dinner with her and socializes for a little while.
Socializza.
Then he, Dominica, and the maitre d' finish up and excuse themselves. They're heading to the bridge. It's time for that sail-by salute. This time, they're going to get closer than ever. Just 1,500 feet from the island of Giglio.
Guarda quanto è stupido.
And how are they going to determine this distance? Well, of course, the captain is going to eyeball it. Apparently, it's not an uncommon thing to do. Scatino turns to the fella steering, his helmsman, Jacob Ruslibin. First interesting tidbit. Costa Concordia has hired Jacob from Indonesia at a rock-bottom price.
Bellissimo, parte già benissimo.
In fact, his profession hitherto, a painter and a cleaner. It's his first time steering a massive ship, and he's very
È la prima
excited.
volta
At least we think he is. It's
che
hard to tell because he
pilota.
doesn't speak English or Italian very well at all.
Non parla né inglese
Off
né
to a good
italiano.
start. The second in command orders the helmsman to 290. Now, don't be confused by these numbers, they're just the degrees on a compass. At the same time, the captain whips out his cell phone and calls former captain
Perfetto.
Mario Palombo, who lives on the island.
Mario
They chat
Palombo.
about the safe distance to Giglio's shores. It's all very casual. Anyway, Mario says that the safe distance is between 0.3 and 0.4 miles from shore.
Beh, è una follia.
The captain is going all in. This is not his first sail-by salute, so he's confident in what he's doing.
Certo.
We're going closer than we've ever been before. The captain's eyeballing it again. New heading of 300, he tells the helmsman.
300, dice al
Downstairs,
tizio.
Martin is about to cut his assistant in half. And of course, that
Mamma
means
mia,
that there's
parte
already
già
a lady
benissimo,
inside
sono già
this
rapito.
box. She's waiting for the cue, and then she'll poke her legs out. The captain is giving more orders. Pulling gently to 310. Increase speed to 16 knots. Going this fast is going to be a fatal error. But before we talk about that, let's talk about another big problem. Language barrier. Because at this point, the captain says 325, but the helmsman relays 315. So the first officer intervenes, and he goes, no, 335, which is also wrong. And then the captain clarifies, no, 325. The helmsman confirms 325. Their poor communication has them moving at a much wider angle than they think they are. However, the captain should and would know this, except for the next problem, complacency about procedure. The standard procedure of a ship this large is for the third officer to give exact positional coordinates every time the captain gives a new
Silvia.
directional order. But they're not doing that. 330, he says. The helmsman relays 330. The ship reaches 16 knots. The captain then turns to the second officer and instructs him to go to the left wing. That's these things here, and they basically exist so you can get a better view over the whole vessel. A few seconds pass, and then the mood starts to turn.
Eccoci.
Scatino notices white foam of waves breaking against the rocks directly in front of him in the distance. The Costa Concordia, right now, is almost 700 meters closer to the rocks than it should be. Without deviation, there is going to be a direct collision. Oh, shit! Scatino immediately commands the ship to start turning away. 335. Not enough. The captain shouts, 340. The captain yells, 350. Now, remember how I said that accelerating
Madonna
to
santa.
16 knots was a fatal error?
Scatino.
Well, that's because it's made this ship incapable of such a drastic turn. What they've got is understeer. Here's an example.
The front end is not working. You're turning, and you're just going straight. You want to go over here, but you're going to end up over here.
So despite the order of 350, right now the bow is still only pointing at 327.
Drifting.
Not nearly enough to miss the rock.
Drifting.
And oh no, it's about to get worse. That language barrier again.
In these critical moments where every second counts, the helmsman wrongly relays 340. The captain snaps back, 350 starboard or we end up on the rocks. The third officer goes to assist the helmsman. Now, don't get confused by the orders from here. We're changing over to rudder instructions. The captain yells, starboard 10, starboard 20, and still it's not enough. Hard to starboard. That means as hard as it'll go. But at this point, even if they clear these rocks, they need to get the rest of the ship to swing around it.
Mamma
so the
mia.
captain yells, midship, which centers the rudder. The bow is now less than 150 meters from Skull Rock. Port 10. But the helmsman only gets to port 5 before another order is given 2 seconds later. Port 20. They might just avoid disaster here, maybe. But then, oh no. One more time, the helmsman cocks up at the worst possible moment. The helmsman goes to starboard instead of port, undoing the swing. 8 seconds later, he realizes the error and corrects, but it's too late.
8 secondi. 8 secondi sono tantissimi qua.
Hit. All they can do now is hold on as the bow of the ship narrowly passes by the rocks. Hard to port! The second officer yells, we're gonna hit! Collision.
Ma wow. Ma veramente, ma puoi avere dei problemi sulla comunicazione base di come si... Boh, veramente. Veramente la tempesta perfetta, alcune cose.
Downtown, Nordtown. It's day 56 of playing Russian roulette.
Vabbè, questa è
Seems
una pubblicità,
I
credo.
Never win.
Gonna drink all by yourself.
Questa è la pubblicità di
Somebody
NordVPN.
has to.
Va bene. Schippo la pubblicità di NordVPN.
Add over.
Vai.
The ship hits rocks on the port side.
Bam 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 bam.
53-meter gash opens up in the hull.
Squarcio di 53 metri.
Tons of water begin pouring in.
Tonnellate di
A
acqua.
loud scraping and bang is heard by all passengers. At the helm, there's panic. Rumblings in the dining room. Martin awkwardly pauses his act as he's helping his assistant into the box. Meanwhile, the lady inside is trapped and terrified. There's
Let me out,
confusion
let me out,
across
let
the
me
ship.
out.
All of the crew off shift come back on duty. All officers run to the bridge. Technical crews run down to the lower decks to assess damage.
Mamma mia.
On connection with the rocks, they lose
Drag, questa è
propulsion and
internet
slow to
storia, no?
8.3 knots. And they are now adrift. Close the watertight doors at stern. Enormous volumes of water are pouring in. So much so that within 29 seconds of collision, all 6 engines stop working through flooding.
30 secondi
22 seconds
e
later,
tutti i
a
motori
blackout
sono allagati.
Lights, electrics, the water pumps too. Everything. The captain orders the helmsman hard starboard. This is the final position of the rudder before power to that too is lost. The Costa Concordia, now without power, is drifting starboard, plunged into absolute darkness.
Gesù Cristo.
A quick breakdown of the flooding. When the Concordia struck land, it tore open 3
Punk.
water compartments. At first,
Senti la musica
compartment
intanto.
5, which filled very rapidly. Then 6 more slowly, 4 shortly after. Then 7, 8, and 3. Modern ships are built to withstand 2 compartment breaches. These compartments especially, though, are a problem, because they contain the engines and the electrics. These main generators give power to the whole ship. From propulsion motors
Senti
to
la
rudder
musica
to
sotto.
hotel functions, pretty much everything. When they went out, the ship was a functionless, sinking cage. A few seconds later, the emergency batteries for internal lighting and communications kick on. When the lights come back on, Martin has vanished. He's ditched the stage. And it caused a huge panic in the theatre, as passengers are trying to flee to their cabins and to muster stations. People already in their cabins come out and start putting on life vests.
Oh,
Staff
mamma
rally
mia.
and try to calm everyone down. Everything is fine. There's no need for vests. Please return to your cabins.
Sì, sì, con l'acqua ovunque.
All of the watertight doors close except for door 12, which is jammed. The captain calls Pilon, the chief engineer, as the ship begins to list on the port side. There's water coming in? Yes, there's water. But where? The engine room. But a lot of water? Yes! There's water, you can't go down.
Yes.
Let's go down the other side. In a moment we'll start the pumps, I'll let you know. In the theatre, the whole magic box apparatus slides right off the stage and falls into the crowd, further increasing panic. On the bridge, an announcement is being prepared. They are going to lie to prevent a panic. Let's just say we have a blackout.
Eccoci qua. Parte
The
il
deputy
giro.
chief engineer enters the engine control room. He confirms to the
Alberto
bridge that at least
Fiorito.
compartments 5, 6, and 7 are flooded. Announcements are made.
We want the captain to inform you that due to an electrical fault, which is currently under control, we're currently in a blackout. Our technicians are working to resolve
Wow,
the situation.
blackout
I will inform you of
elettrico
developments as they
attualmente
occur.
sotto
Thank you for your
controllo, è quello che hanno
attention.
detto.
Coincidentally, at the same time in the restaurant, they're playing My
Blackout
Heart Will Go
elettrico
On, and it's
attualmente
very
sotto
much not
controllo.
helping the situation.
Figo.
The captain calls the Costa crisis unit. Roberto Ferrarini. He tells the crisis unit that they've hit a rock, that they're assessing damages, and that they are also in a blackout. The crisis office says to reverse the ship up onto shore. Well, how are you going to do that? You don't have power to the rudder, let alone the engine.
No, infatti.
Hoist the sails? Anyway, around this time, the wind direction creates a starboard list, and the ship begins to turn anyway, drifting right back towards the shore, which is a very good thing because you want the ship to end up as close to shore as possible.
Giustamente.
A panicked passenger senses that something is off. This isn't like any electrical problem that she's ever seen. Plus, there was a massive crashing noise and now the ship is tilting. So, she contacts her daughter in Italy. The daughter then calls the police, and the police call the harbour master. While that goes on, a conversation between Pilon and Ambrosio. The diesel is not starting. The captain asks the engine room, but where have we made contact?
Mamma mia.
Thinking that the incoming water can be reduced. Captain, here everything
Musica di
is lost.
Metal Gear.
The electrical panel, everything. They're saying at this point that the ship is going down. The captain calls Roberto Ferrarini again. Actually, 2 compartments have been flooded, but don't worry, the ship's stability isn't in danger. Wrong. Passengers begin going to muster
Bugiardo, fino alla
stations on their own
fine.
initiative. The cruise director says, "We have a lot of people at muster stations that I do not want to fall overboard. Do we make an announcement to tell them to go to the lounges?" Bosio says, "I think that's best."
Con 3
The harbour
telefoni.
master from Livorno calls the ship. The captain tells them that we just have a blackout. How long
Ma
has
che
this
cazzo
blackout been
dice?
going on? About 20 minutes. Have you asked passengers to put on life vests? It's just a blackout. I gotta go. The harbour master is suspicious. He says to his superiors that he thinks something more
Eccolo
is
De
going
Falco.
on. He calls a patrol boat to the area and asks them to look at the ship. Another problem. The fan on the emergency diesel generator isn't working properly. Pilon manually
veramente non
has to
ho idea
turn
di
the
come
thing on
faccia
and
uno a
off
dire
with a
una
screwdriver
cazzata
so that it doesn't
del
overheat
genere in
and
una
cause a
situazione del
fire.
genere. Cioè.
The captain is on the phone to the lower decks, asking pointless questions, like, is it still flooded? Yes. Yes, it is. The captain is essentially in denial of the situation. The harbour master calls again. Finally, he says, "The ship is taking on water through an opening in the left side, and the ship is listing." He qualifies
Finalmente.
with, "No one dead or injured." The harbour master asks if he needs help. "Just a tugboat?" When in reality, they need a full rescue. With 3 compartments flooded, the captain finally
Perché?
realizes that things are really bad, and they are not going to improve. The Coast Guard orders every available ship to the scene. Meanwhile, up with the passengers, the cruise director's assistant says, everything's under control. Please return to your cabins or hang it out
Tornate
in
nelle
the
vostre
lounges,
stanze
no problem."
tranquillamente.
She said this despite knowing it was wrong and that it further endangered lives. Most passengers at this point, though, aren't listening to this nonsense, and they're busy figuring out how to abandon ship.
Esatto.
Bang, 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 bang. Local television has already picked up the story and they begin broadcasting live radio feed from the bridge.
Capo.
Captain, the passengers are going on
Capo.
board the boats. Okay, let them
Capo.
go to shore. So then general emergency? Wait, let me talk to Ferrarini. We risk the emergency generators that do not have cooling. It has cooling problems, 100 degrees. The cooling fan has stopped. Pilon calls the bridge and tells the safety officer they need to evacuate. The safety officer relays this to the captain, but after no response, he orders the engine room to evacuate on his own. The captain says, "No, stay. We're leaving." So what do? General emergency? The captain tells Ferrarini that he's abandoning ship. Abandoned ship! Another announcement is made.
Ladies and gentlemen, your attention, please. The situation is under control. Please remain calm.
Perché?
Proceed to your muster station. They're located outside on deck 4.
The Livorno Coast Guard calls again. The captain declares
Quanta roba che non ha senso di fila. Madonna, quante cose che non hanno senso di fila.
The helicopter base commander, who then calls in every available pilot. As he rushes down to the helicopter base, Pilon shuts down the emergency generator for the final time. The first rescue vessel arrives. By this point, the lifeboats are already going. Luckily, the ship is very close to shore. Oh, perhaps too close to shore. The ship forcefully runs aground, creating an uneven center of gravity, and it begins heavily listing starboard. The captain issues a general emergency
Pronti.
report. The announcement to abandon ship is finally called and alarms ring out, and with that comes panic. And now that they're listing, with many of the lifeboats too awkwardly positioned to enter the water, there aren't enough readily available and they have to start going back and forth.
Perché ormai la nave è in tilt, quindi non riescono neanche a mettere le scialuppe in posizione.
And is listing heavily. So the harbour master asks the captain about it, and the captain says, no, the ship is still floating. In fact, we're trying to maneuver it onto the shore. They know he's lying. Hold on, I'm reversing it. Beep, 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 beep. The captain then says to bottom out the starboard
Perché continua a mentire?
So they drop out the anchors, but let out too much chain, effectively rendering them useless. The deputy mayor of Giglio,
non ne ha azzeccata una, incredibile!
Owner Giovanni Rossi arrive at the harbour. They watch the scene unfold. As the first of the lifeboats arrive on shore, the deputy mayor takes the initiative and races to board one of the lifeboats, returning to the ship, and starts trying to find someone in charge. He gives up and starts helping passengers. Schettino tells everyone to leave and take radios, but not before changing out of his uniform and into a nice suit. Priorities. Dimitri Christidis and Silvia Coronica leave with him. The maitre d' and Sir Morton both get out of there. By this point, approximately 300 people are still on the ship. Millet reaches the helicopter base. The first helicopter, a slow-moving Augusta Bell...
Cioè, non so se avete capito, lui se n'è andato con la gente che era ancora a bordo, e lo so che lo sapete, però è bene ridirlo. Lui se n'è andato con la gente che era ancora a bordo e non se n'è andato vestito da capitano, se n'è andato vestito da civile per non farsi rompere le palle, fondamentalmente.
Was already rising from the tarmac for the hour-long flight south. Bozio is the last crew member left on the bridge, coordinating evacuation. He then leaves to help passengers board lifeboats. The bridge is now abandoned. And then, the ship's black box stops working. Apparently there were technical problems with it. That means, from here, things are going to get a little foggy in detail. A while later, rescue helicopters arrive, but they're struggling to find the ship because they're expecting it to still be well above water. Passengers are scaling down the port side by ladder as lifeboats return to pick them up.
This is no joke. Oh my goodness. It was no joke, mi amore. Yes.
You're not allowed to make a film movie.
I'm allowed.
Who say you are?
A second helicopter
I'm allowed.
Sets off.
You're not allowed to make a film movie.
Now the Coast Guard calls the captain because he's just learned
veramente, io capisco non sapere l'inglese. In realtà non lo capisco. Capisco non sapere l'inglese. In realtà non lo capisco 2 volte. Ma you're not allowed to make a film movie. Veramente? Cioè siamo... Vabbè. Sto zitto.
Sets off. The ship stops healing and comes to a final resting place. Now the Coast Guard calls the captain because he's just learnt that the captain has abandoned ship.
Ecco.
The captain claims, no, actually I slipped and I fell into one of the lifeboats. I'm a klutz. But now that I'm on board, I may as well head back to shore. DeFalco tells the captain to get the fuck back on board. And the captain kind of acts confused and then effectively refuses. So the captain makes it to shore. From here, we only have mainstream news report.
Cioè gli ha detto che è inciampato e che è finito in una delle scialuppe per inciampo, ma ormai era lì e quindi ha detto vabbè, mo vado fino in fondo, ormai sono qua. E De Falco gli dice, il famosissimo, vada a bordo, cazzo. E lui fa... e chiude.
To rely on, so it's not going to be super accurate. But they say that Giulio's police chief then finds 110 survivors
Veramente,
from the rocks
guarda.
at Point Gabbianara. And among them is the captain. It's not known whether the captain helped anyone while he was there, and in fact, the police chief claimed that he just sat on the rocks and watched other people do the rescuing. A while later, a rescue boat picks up the captain and takes him to the harbor and speaks to the police. He then finds the ship's onboard chaplain.
Vorrei
Father
morisse,
Referral,
veramente. Penso
and
che sia
cries to him
l'unica
for
cosa che mi
about
viene da
15
dire.
minutes. Then he goes to the harbour master's office to receive probably the biggest dressing down of his entire life. Port authorities ask the taxi driver to take the captain back to his hotel.
Non ha senso niente di tutto ciò.
The Bahamas hotel. According to the cabbie, he was beaten like a dog. He was cold and afraid. He only asked me where he could buy a pair of fresh socks. But then he perked right up again and gave an interview to a news crew. He told them that he was the last to leave.
The captain is usually the last to abandon ship. What happened, Captain?
We were the last to leave the ship.
All day Saturday, rescuers search for people on the ship. On Sunday morning, a South Korean couple is found in their cabin, safe but shivering. They had slept through the crash.
È vero,
and
crash,
woke
è
up
vero.
unable to exit their cabin. The last survivor, Manrico Giampandroni, was found with a broken leg. He was the cabin's service director. In the end, 32 people died. The final body wasn't discovered until nearly 3 years later. A crew member, Russell Rebello, and it's believed that he died a hero helping passengers off the ship. The Costa Concordia was the largest cruise ship disaster since the Titanic. And then there's the
Pazzesco.
ship. This is what happens to a 110,000-ton cruise liner when it's left half rolled over in the ocean.
Guarda che cazzo di roba, guarda. Ma sì, che c'entra iniziare bene l'anno, Alex? Meglio sapere che non sapere.
But this isn't the end. It's just the halfway point. What most people know is that the Costa Concordia had crashed, many dead, and that the captain abandoned ship like a coward.
Esatto, che è
But
quello che
there's a
so
whole
anch'io.
veritable spaghetti of details to untangle. Let's dive in.
Cosa stai facendo? Cosa sta facendo? I dettagli. Attenzione ai dettagli. Looting, attenzione.
Box time. The Costa Concordia was more than just a floating resort. There's more. A casino. Cha-ching, cha-ching. This iron chest was full of safes and cash registers and expensive fittings. And there were plenty of gamers prepared to sneak by authorities and try their luck in the hot zone.
Vai, 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 vai.
Within
Evviva.
days, police divers reported that valuable items, once seen lying around the ship, were now missing. High-end liquor, expensive furniture, dining sets, cash from the casino, cash registers, jewelry and display cabinets,
già.
safes, Japanese woodblock prints by famous 18th century artists, as well as the iconic bell, which hung from the bridge of the ship.
Oh my
It was never
God.
found. Who steals a big fuck-off bell? Even the server admins were getting involved. 4 divers who were part of the company contracted to refloat the Concordia were spotted on CCTV, sneaking out to the ship. A patrol boat was dispatched, and the men were caught inside the fancy suites with rucksacks full of stolen goods. The 4 men are charged with stealing and thieving and pinching. Later on, stolen as well as legitimate items found their way to Amazon and eBay. Chips from the casino, postcards, and cabin access cards became highly sought after souvenirs.
It even has a watermark.
Some Australian guy even made a listing for the ship itself, advertising it as buyer to collect. And although there were plenty of bidders, eBay pulled the plug. I know you want to see Scatino go to jail, and we'll get to that. But first, we have to talk about someone else.
Sì.
Dominica
La tipa.
Simorton.
Sì.
There was speculation that she was on the bridge that evening because she was the captain's mistress.
Lava.
Intense media speculation reports that her presence distracted the captain.
They both denied their love for years and maintained that they were just friends. Although she did later admit to the media that she found him handsome. And how could you not?
You so fucking precious.
But she says there was no romantic link between them.
Some people would like to believe, they want to know I have something with him. It's more interesting. It's like, you know, some spicy in the story.
Miss Simorton also loved the spotlight.
Ma ti rendi conto?
And took several interviews. But as the pressure mounted upon her, she began making ominous threats to Scatino, saying he must confess, and that you have but 1 week to come clean. But things from here get weird.
Spicy.
Simorton is a bit of a wild
Spicy.
card. In a subsequent interview, she claimed a helicopter came to the ship well before the other rescue craft to take away a package. Huh? And what was that package? Drugs, apparently. So rumors began that the ship was running narcotics for the mafia. And not without cause. A number of cruise ships, even recently, have been caught trafficking drugs. As an aside, Scatino was tested for drugs immediately after the crash. He tested negative for drugs in his system, but trace amounts of cocaine were found in a hair sample.
Makes it smoother and less dry.
Nonetheless, the Concordia was searched and no drugs were reportedly ever found. How did we get here? Oh right, a helicopter. Simorton commented on it again the next day and said, actually, that helicopter was just for the captain as a means of evacuation from the ship. Okay, wait. So she expected to get some sort of first-class rescue while everyone else was still stuck on the ship? Wait, how did we get here? Oh, right, sex with the captain. Divers were quick to head to the captain's cabin where they found Miss Simorton's lingerie and other articles of clothing as well as a makeup bag. The jig was up, but they continued denying it. Simorton mostly faded from international attention until she was told to appear before the court to present witness testimony. The judge pressed her to be truthful about their relationship.
Assurdo,
or she would be
assurdo. Come sempre, più andiamo avanti, più lo trovo assurdo.
So finally,
fuori di testa.
Yes, I had a sentimental relationship with the captain.
Stop.
But now, stop asking about my private life.
She was indeed the captain's lover.
What is up, Trouble Alert Nation? Scatino cheated on his wife with Simorton. Oh my god!
She and Scatino had been having an affair for several weeks.
Era?
She also said that on the night she boarded, she didn't have a ticket.
Ticket, please.
And didn't need to pay because nobody questions you when you're the captain's lover. Naturally, she gave another confusing interview after leaving court.
I want to say that today is the second time I die because the first time I died in the night of the crash with my psychological brain and problems. And today I died the second time because, of course, people find out something that I try to hide.
Subsequent to the trial, she used her fame in Moldova to become a political activist, often appearing on television and radio and in articles covering protests, accompanied by pictures of her being arrested by police.
Ma ti rendi conto?
It was some stuff about victims of violence, women's rights,
girl power,
yada yada yada. And interestingly, part of a push to block the sale of shares of Moldova's train network to Russia.
Sure.
Other than that, I don't really know what she's been up to. Let me just check on her Oh god, not again. Several civil suits were quickly lodged against Costa Concordia, and their
Ma
parent
poi,
company,
scusate,
Carnival
ma
Cruises, immediately saw a ship.
a prescindere, ma anche come terminologia, dire sono morta una volta, sono morta la seconda volta, all'uscita da... Cioè sono morte veramente 30 passa persone, oh, hello? Sono morte veramente 30 persone, ma che modo di dire è? Cioè tu sei all'uscita da un processo dove sono morte 30 persone, oh. E forse in parte è colpa tua o comunque di quello che te lo buttava nel culo.
Airdrop of 23%. Passengers sought compensation for their damaged mental health, lost belongings, and loved ones.
Either they allowed him to divert from his course, or they didn't know where their billion-dollar ship was.
Within a few days, facing financial and media pressure, the CEO attempted to join the bandwagon against the captain and the crew.
That was not the ordinary route that the ship was taking at the time, and was not only taking, but the time the ship was...
Claiming that the ship was not approved to deviate from the route. But that wasn't true. Approval isn't required if the ship was deviating by less than 15 miles.
Questa è la definizione di un italiano che parla inglese. È letteralmente questo, un italiano che parla inglese.
Wagon against the captain and the crew.
That was not the ordinary route that the ship was taking at the time. And was not only taking, but the time the ship was...
Claiming that the ship was not approved to deviate from the route. But that wasn't true. Approval isn't required if the ship is deviating by less than 15 miles, or that it was against company rules. Also untrue, because investigators found they didn't have any rules about deviating route, and they tacitly encouraged sail-by salutes. Now, in response to the civil suits, Costa Concordia offered passengers 11,000 euros each as compensation.
That's kind of small.
11,000 euros.
11.000 euro, non me la ricordavo sta cosa.
Is the minimum compensation under international law when a ship is
11.000
abandoned.
euro.
This was to reimburse them for their tickets, as well as any costs they accrued in having to unexpectedly travel home early.
Ma scusa?
And that was supposed to release them from everything and anything that has to do with this accident.
What?
I cannot ask for more than this.
A lot of passengers, understandably, were not too happy with this deal, and they refused to take the money.
We think the offer is an insult for what these poor passengers went through.
My
we think that the compensation being offered is not commensurate.
Here, take it.
Compensation being offered is not commensurate.
Later, Costa Concordia would lodge a plea deal with the Tuscany court to pay a €1 million fine to avoid a criminal trial. The judge agrees. Costa Concordia is now off the hook for all criminal liability for the whole thing. They've washed their hands of the incident and flecked the residual droplets of responsibility onto the faces of 6 staff members. Passengers and relatives of the dead are livid that the company has been able to avoid criminal responsibility.
Italy. Offered is not commensurate.
Civil suits against the company continue.
Italy.
By the way, the residents of the island of Giglio also banded together and sought damages. They didn't get much. Eventually, passengers who refused the initial compensation of 11,000 joined civil parties against Scatino in his trial in 2015.
Is not commensurate.
They were awarded 30,000 euros each. Other cases, especially those involving lost relatives, are settled for undisclosed amounts.
Scams,
New
attenzione.
York attorney Peter Renee traveled to Budapest to represent 6 real survivors of the disaster.
At Renee, we personally work on every case.
And we'll work harder than anyone to get you the most money possible in the shortest amount of time.
And while on the job, a 7th case cropped up via email.
Perché c'è
An
Asmongold?
elderly woman, Alona, said,
"Help me, Mr. Ronai, for I have lost my daughter, Eva, and my 5-year-old granddaughter, Roxana."
So Mr. Renai agreed to speak with her. However, there were some inconsistencies in her story. Neither Eva nor Roxana were on the passenger list. Odd, but Costa is known for having stowaways.
Gotcha, bitch!
Still, Mr. Renai was suspicious. They wouldn't cheaty old Petey, would they? Renai inquired further about why she was on board, especially without a ticket. Ilona said,
Well, I don't know, but you should ask her boyfriend.
Zolt Horvath.
He'll know all the details.
I'm up all night. I'm going crazy, he said. But Mr. Renai was still suspicious. Because then she asked, how much money do you think this is worth? This is a huge red flag, Petey. In 20 years of doing this, you've never had anyone ask about money. Why now?
Sì, infatti.
So Mr. Renai hired an investigator and sent photos around of the missing girl. The next day, the phone rang. Ahoy hoy, it was the boyfriend again. Look, there's been a bit of a misunderstanding and the child isn't missing at all. Uh-huh. And then he claimed he was confused because he had done too many drugs the night before. Oh. Okay, can I speak to the daughter then? At first he was refused. So Renai said that he'd have to file a missing persons report to the police if he couldn't. The boyfriend relented. That night, Renai met with Zolt and brought the police with him. He speaks to the granddaughter and asks her if she's seen Mum. Yeah, I saw her today. Oh, really? Yeah, we went to the park today and we went on the swings. Oh no, the jig was up. So the mum walks into the car sheepishly. It's a miracle. And the story changed again. Okay, I'm not dead, but I did injure my leg when I jumped from the ship. And then I immediately flew back to Budapest. Although don't worry about checking my leg because there are no visible marks or injuries. Oh, Petey, I'm beginning to think they weren't even on the boat. Also, it turns out this lady isn't her mum, it's just
Ma ti rendi conto?
Eventually, Renai managed to make the pair confess. And then they said, hey, we haven't done anything wrong. We haven't taken any money. And in the end, it looks like there'll be no criminal punishment for the scam, because Hungary, a former communist country, has no laws against insurance fraud on the books.
The law firm that never sleeps. Call 1-800-6647.
Oh, that's a bad idea.
No, no. Vada a bordo, scritto in italiano. Bellissimo.
Would you teach me some Italian?
Oh, of course.
Vada a bordo, cazzo.
Okay, thanks.
Gregorio De Falco, the naval officer who shouted at Scatino to Vada a bordo caso, became a bit of a national hero overnight in Italy. He, like the rest of the world, expected Scatino to go down with the ship.
No, non credo. Non credo. Non penso
and
che
when the
fosse...
captain chickened out, De Falco was there to admonish him. And when he stopped answering the radio, he called him on his cell phone to continue putting him on blast. When the captain first reported just a blackout, De Falco didn't believe the story and immediately began preparing a rescue effort, which likely saved several lives.
Assurdo.
His actions were applauded by most Italians who were tired of their public servants.
Sì, poi ha fatto della merda anche lui,
Accordingly, shirts sporting Vada a
Vada a bordo
cazzo were being printed by the end of the
Vada
week.
a bordo
Others setting
cazzo.
it as their phone's ringtone. But then,
Sì,
in September 2014, without warning, De Falco was transferred to an admin role in the Coast Guard.
Hear what I said? You've been demoted.
De Falco said that he had been passed up for promotion, that he had also not been told which admin office he was even being transferred to, and that it all effectively cancelled 10 years of his career. De Falco was tres furioso, and there was public speculation that it was owing to bad blood between himself and Admiral Della, his former boss. His status among the public overshadowed his superior in many ways. On the other hand, his boss said, no, it's part of a normal career progression for naval officers and that he must show more maturity and professionalism to advance his career. Now, it's hard to know what's true in office politics, so let's leave that alone. And anyway, in 2018, De Falco said buenas noches, ya later, to the Italian Navy to become a politician.
Sì.
In March that year, he was elected to the Italian Senate, serving as a member for Livorno. He still serves there today.
I'm the captain now.
Sì, esatto, Android. Jail time. Oh, finalmente,
The day after the
finalmente.
disaster, Schettino was taken into
Finalmente.
custody by police and underwent questioning. However, it was clear that this would not be a straightforward investigation.
Ma ti rendi
So the
conto?
judge released him under house arrest at his home in Sorrento, a town in Napoli. By July of that year, the house arrest was relaxed and he was allowed within this general area. While under house arrest, he wrote a book with this journalist from Rai magazine. I have no idea what it says, I don't speak Italian. But goddammit, he must have some kind of charisma going on, because there's been a lot of speculation in the press that he had an affair with her as well.
You can't keep getting away with it!
Hold on, I got it. Not content with abandoning his ship, this dude is determined to abandon his wife as well. So, Schettino and 5 others are facing criminal charges. Straight away, everyone lodges a plea bargain with the court, and all of those plea bargains are accepted, except for Schettino's. And the condition of everyone's reduced sentences are that they must provide witness testimony against Schettino.
He touched me.
Ciro, Jacob,
Devono
and Silvia were all
scoparsi
given
tutti
suspended
Schettino per
sentences.
avere la
Roberto
riduzione.
and Manrico are able to opt for community service or house arrest. Not a bad deal. A good deal. Good deal. And that meant that Schettino was now all on his own. Ciro, the first officer,
Com'è possibile che Schettino ha avuto 2 amanti solo in questa storia e io faccio ancora fatica, Iero? Perché sei weeb.
And other guests on the bridge.
E ti meriti di scopare meno di Schettino se sei weeb.
Over who was in command. Then it was Jacob's turn. And he said, Lamau XD, because he didn't actually bother with his testimony or his reduced sentence. He just fled the country. It took authorities 12 months to eventually track him down on the outskirts of Jakarta. And when they said, oi, we still want that witness testimony, he just scalped again. And he hasn't been found since.
Come he hasn't been found
Ferrarini
since?
gave his testimony, then
In che senso? Come he hasn't been found since? Ma questo è un eroe assurdo.
his own. Ciro, the first officer, was the first to give his testimony. On the witness stand, he claimed that Schettino was distracted by his mistress and other guests on the bridge. That there was confusion over who was in command. Then it was Jacob's turn. And he said, Lamau XD, because he didn't actually bother with his testimony or his reduced sentence. He just fled the country. It took authorities 12 months to eventually track him down on the outskirts of Jakarta. And when they said, oi, we still want that witness testimony, he just scalped again. And he hasn't been found since. After that, Ferrarini gave his testimony, then look, we don't have time to relitigate the whole trial, so let's just go straight to the verdict. Guilty! Schettino was found guilty of multiple manslaughter, causing a shipwreck, abandoning ship, and lying to authorities. He is sentenced to 16 years and 1 month in prison.
Boh, pochissimo comunque.
But wait, there's still the appeals.
Ovviamente.
The appeals trial begins. And the verdict on the appeal? Surprise! Rejected! So Schettino's lawyers appealed again. And the verdict on the final appeal?
Schettino made multiple attempts to secure a plea deal but was denied by the prosecution each time. The prosecution called for Schettino to be sentenced to 26 years in prison, calling the incident a Titanic affair.
Oh, okay. I see what you did there.
Schettino was not present. His lawyers stated that he was waiting outside of the jail for the ruling, so that if his plea was rejected, he could immediately start serving his sentence. And with that, 5 years and 4 months after the disaster, he was finally in a cell.
I will not be making any comment.
Oh, that hurt.
Refloating the Concordia.
The salvage operation was enormous. It took over 2 years and cost an estimated
Sì, questa me la ricordo.
$1.2 billion. Beginning in early 2012, they first spent 2 months pumping fuel from the ship's tanks.
Le verità
At the same
sommerse
time,
comunque.
They had to pump seawater in so that the balance wasn't affected and the ship didn't
Cioè
slide
Schettino
around.
può scrivere un libro e
In early
venderlo
2013,
in
a
Italia.
platform was built under the ship to prevent it from falling further. Sponsons were then attached to the sides
Vi
of the
lamentate
ship and
dei libri di
cables
Ciccio
attached to the
Gamer.
underwater platform. The sponsons were then dragged underwater and opened up to allow the ocean to fill them. The ship could then roll over properly. By late 2013, the ship was upright once more. The sponsons were then attached to the side of the ship to help keep it balanced. It now rested partially above water and crews could walk around safely. By July 2014, the water was removed from the sponsons and compressed air was pumped in to lift the ship. And she was ready to cruise again. This time to a port in Genoa. It was a 4-day towing journey to the docks where a 2-year process of dismantling and recycling would begin. That same weekend of the towing, Schettino was busy. He was the guest of honor at a white party on an island in the Bay of Naples. He appeared on the front page of a local newspaper, flanked by 2 of Italy's most eligible bachelorettes. Anyway, so these are the things that I remember from the Costa Concordia. That sweet maiden of the sea. And as for you, little fella.
Perché si sono rubati la campana, se la sono rubata la campana.
But it's time to return you.
Ma non è vero.
From whence you came.
Non è successa questa cosa.
6 quick things. 1. NordVPN, good product, check them out. Number 2. There's a new video on the second channel. You probably didn't see it because it was temporarily restricted. Now it's not. Enjoy. 3. If you've never seen the second channel before, give it a go. It's a different type of content, but we put a lot of production into it. It's not just offcuts. 4. There are a couple secret channels as well, but I ain't telling you where they are. 5. No more 45-minute videos on the main channel. Back to 10 to 15 minutes and more of them. 6. There's a Q&A coming out next week on incognito mode.
Sì.
There's a ton of detail that we had to cut for the sake of brevity.
Non farò più. Ho sbagliato.
Right on schedule.
Ho sbagliato. Non farò più. Lui ha detto non farò più video della durata di 45 minuti sul canale principale e il video dopo è Man in a Cave che dura 1 ora. Lui è stupidissimo, è un genio ma è stupidissimo. Comunque va bene. No, ha detto 45 minuti, non ha solo detto 45 minuti, ha detto anche che li farà durare 10-15. Ha scritto proprio, ha specificato 10-15. Non ve la girate così. Incredibile. Hai appena migliorato la mia vita facendomi scoprire questo canale. Tu non hai idea, Drag. Sono tutti belli i suoi video. Sono tutti loro, perché comunque è una produzione di più persone. Sono tutti belli, veramente. Mamma mia. Guarda che veramente... Man in a Cave era plot twist costanti, ma questo per alcuni versi va veramente oltre. Cioè assurdo. Va veramente oltre. Totalmente assurdo, cazzo.